President, I know you've urged people to move on, but I'm curious, why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled?
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is, but I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring, and I don't understand why it keeps going. I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going.
A few moments later.
We have a bombshell Epstein development right now. In 2025, the White House held a secret emergency meeting to try to protect President Donald Trump from Epstein allegations. In this emergency meeting, held in the Situation Room without phones, Vice President J.D. Vance suggested having Tucker Carlson interview Ghislaine Maxwell so that Maxwell could say Trump did nothing wrong to protect him. According to a new New York Times report, the Trump administration had a freak out over the Epstein files. Everyone was in on it, and it was an effort to protect the president.
And what is so stunning about this reporting is that it's very clear that the president himself directed his staff to not release the files. It is clear that the president himself was actively engaged in the cover-up. It is clear that the vice president, the attorney general, the deputy attorney general, the head of the FBI, the deputy head of the FBI, the communications staff at the White House, and a slew of others were using the room where presidents discuss war to try to manage and stop compliance with the law and cover up the Epstein files.
And we all need to get it together again, work together against the Epstein class, because what was going on behind the scenes is insane. And by the way, the next time a Trump official appears calm when they're talking to the public, don't believe a word they say. Boy, are they full of shit.
Greetings, my BPN family. Welcome to Bold Perspectives Network. I'm Mr. Red. Family, entering this year, Donald Trump was asked about the Epstein files. His response was that he didn't understand why people were still talking about them. Now, at that time, it sounded like he believed the public had moved on. But now, new reporting has brought the story back into the spotlight, and that's where today's discussion begins. Because regardless of where you stand politically, there are a lot of questions being raised about how this issue was handled, who knew what, and what discussions may have taken place behind closed doors. Now, to be clear, reporting, allegations, and questions are not the same thing as proof, but when new information emerges, it deserves to be examined. So today, we're going to look at the reporting, the reactions, and some of the questions people are asking as this story continues to develop. We have much to discuss. Let's strap in. Let's get after it.
It is all coming out. The New York Times just dropped an article that exposes how Trump and his entire senior staff met in the Situation Room to cover up Trump's involvement with Epstein that was inside the files. J.D. Vance was in a panic and he brought them all in. We're talking Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, the press secretary, all of them. Todd Blanche came up with the plan to ask the judges for the grand jury testimony, knowing that they would deny it, and then they could just blame it on the judges. J.D. Vance was pushing to release all of the files, and they had to tell him inside this room that they couldn't do that because it would expose the president. They discussed giving Maxwell a pardon in exchange for her exonerating the president. They knew that the birthday card that Trump wrote to Epstein was real. They knew that Trump had called up Murdoch and his editor-in-chief and threatened them about releasing this birthday card. And Pam Bondi with those white binders, it was all a ruse. And Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi told Trump that they had seen the most horrific crimes inside those files. Crimes that Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi said they are not prosecuting anyone for. In the end, they decided to just blame the Democrats for all of this.
Trump is being taken down from the inside. These Situation Room recordings that we've been hearing about over the past week, I want to dive a little deeper into those. Why would someone with access to the Situation Room feel the need to record what was being said? They're going to turn in Trump to save their own skin. Whoever has those recordings gave them to reporters for a reason, and it's purely to save their own skin. Not because they think what they're doing is right, not because they think that they're going to somehow save the United States. They're trying to avoid jail time.
Did you guys see this report from The Hill? I would like to read some of it to you. Please just stay. Vance legitimately worried. Situation Room tapes given to New York Times. There is rumor that Maggie Haberman is in possession of many audio files, not just what took place as it pertains to the Epstein matter, but other things. Vice President Vance on Wednesday said he was legitimately worried about audio tapes of conversations from the Situation Room being leaked to journalists at the New York Times. His comments come after a recent report alleged that Vance had led the administration's response to the fallout from the release of the files tied to disgraced financier J.E. A separate report from the Times detailed President Trump's discussion in a series of meetings inside the Situation Room. Vance says there's always an element of truth. There's always an element of non-truth. But there were certain things in there that legitimately made me worried that people were like taping.
The Situation Room recordings prove that everybody that was supposedly just turning a blind eye went from being complicit to being a co-conspirator. Because when you think about the fact that you had two officers of the court, two attorneys in that Situation Room discussing how to cover up or suppress evidence that should have been brought forward by a law that was written into law by the very person who supposedly broke that law, then you come to realize that they are co-conspirators and they are allowing actions or crimes to continue on without prosecution or having the victims have their day in court. That, to me, seems like being more of a co-conspirator than just complicit in a cover-up.
The things I'm about to say are just my opinion based upon the reporting that we've heard. To me, signals that there was some type of culpability. To me, it signaled the things that they knew were in those files. They were worried about it taking down their administration. And they were more interested in covering it up or at least keeping it suppressed than they were that, hey, a travesty of justice may have occurred. We can see that because every effort has been made to not be transparent with the Epstein's Files Transparency Act. And then I thought it was interesting that the woman said that she believes that someone from the inside is trying to take Trump down. And to me, that kind of went along with that Hill article that talked about J.D. Vance saying he's worried about a recorder. Now, again, this is just me speculating. I'm not saying this is true. This is a speculation. But if J.D. Vance indeed said that he was worried about someone taping them in the skiff when they were having these quote unquote war room discussions. Well, let me also add, J.D. Vance was also someone who said, why don't we just release the files? And they were like, what are you talking about? This would hurt Trump. It kind of makes sense that J.D. Vance is potentially the person who may have recorded and leaked this information. This is my just speculation. This is just me spitballing at the wall. I am not saying this is true. We don't have all the evidence yet, but I will tell you, if there's ever an investigation into this fully, I believe what we're going to see is that someone is trying to cover their ass. Someone realizes how bad this situation is. They wanted to hang around, but they wanted to make sure that they left themselves wiggle room to get out of it.
Produced. Mr. Blanchard, I want to follow up with you on what you just said. You were referencing the 15 files released Friday. They disappeared from DOJ's website yesterday, including this photo of what looks like a desk with a drawer open containing photos of Donald Trump. Just to be very clear, to put a fine point on it, why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
Well, you can see in that photo, there's photographs of women. And so we learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up. So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump. There are dozens of photos of President Trump already released to the public, seeing him with Mr. Epstein. He has said that in the 90s and early 2000s, he socialized with him. So the absurdity of us pulling down a photo, a single photo, because President Trump was in it, is laughable.
If you go back to what was said earlier, Todd Blanche was also in that room, in that war room, when they were discussing what was going on with the Epstein files. So the fact that you have Todd Blanche on TV trying to justify why he took down photos that happened to have Donald Trump in them, and now when you combine that with what's going on in the war room, that they were trying to keep Donald Trump from being in trouble, it looks kind of fishy, doesn't it?
Why is this name redacted? You would think the DOJ would want to investigate someone who sent an email to Jeffrey Epstein saying, quote, "I give you permission to kill him." Check this out. "I give you permission to kill him. He is apparently with Olga. He lied to you. He lied to me." And you can kind of make out the name here to be one Susan Hamblin. So who is Susan Hamblin? Well, she is evidently a financial advisor and founder of the adoption agency Kids to Families. Looks like the agency no longer exists, but I was able to find this archive in the Wayback Machine. But one Sue Hamblin can be seen in this photo with Jeffrey Epstein describing her to be his alleged assistant.
This is a FBI intake form, and it refers to statements made by someone in 2021. These allegations took place on a call to the NTOC. But the story they tell about Donald Trump is that he was funding parties at his golf course. This witness says they saw Robin Leach, the famous television host, strangle a girl to death at one of Trump's parties, and that they know of 3 separate occasions on which girls were murdered and buried behind the 19th hole of the golf course there. It's important to note that this is the kind of document that Kash Patel had access to when he told the U.S. Congress under oath that Jeffrey Epstein never trafficked girls to anyone but himself.
That idea that people at the top levels of the government literally meet in the White House to discuss an ongoing criminal conspiracy. Because there's no reason to have this conversation unless you intend to engage in that room, unless you intend to engage in something where no one can ever hear about it, where there's no possibility of it leaking, where it's not going to be overheard by some rando staffers. The whole thing stinks on ice. And now, the other thing that people have not yet fully processed on this, what we're going to see in the coming weeks, and certainly next year, is that members of Congress who have been lied to by Bondi, by Patel, by Bongino, by Todd Blanche, are going to be called back before the committee, and it is not going to go well.
Sex trafficking, co-conspirators, fully redacted. Les Wexner is in this, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child's trafficking, not to money laundering, child trafficking.
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times. Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out
where
of
he's
over
listed as a co-conspirator.
Okay. And we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to. You're a failed politician.
They're going to have to answer. And on this day, tell me more about this criminal conspiracy you were engaged in the Situation Room. And they don't get to go, nope, Situation Room, hands off, can't talk about it. We now know who the terrain of the conspirators is, including Susie Wiles.
Right.
We now know the date of this meeting. We now know that since that meeting occurred, Blanche, Bongino, Patel, and Bondi have all been in front of Congress lying about the discussions over the Epstein files. These people, and I say this with all the respect in the world that they deserve, are fucking idiots.
There are people out there who don't want us to talk about this. There are people who want us to forget what's going on. The war was, again, started right around the time that the heat was up on the Epstein files. And so now you have Trump needing to get out of this war because he is now the most unpopular president ever. And with that amount of heat, he needs to get out of this. He needs to get out of the war, even if it means an L. But the problem is he can't get out of this war because the net man over there, and it's not real. And they are over there potentially threatening to release some stuff that would bring more heat upon Trump so that he can't end this war.
We've got a former Israeli intelligence officer making a wild claim that in order to sabotage Donald Trump's new peace deal with Iran, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, may release new Epstein information.
If there's a real deal between the Americans and the Iranians, and it's going towards that, Netanyahu will try to sabotage it. One of the ways he'd sabotage it is by putting out Epstein material against U.S. government officials, including Trump, and he put it out there. New material that wasn't seen before.
Am I telling you all this is connected? I have no clue. I don't know. I'm telling you that there is too much coincidence going on right now for it not to be some type of smoke indicating where the fire is, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay, I know that was kind of crazy, but the point is, there is a lot going on, and they want you to be quiet. What I need for you all to do, I need for you all to continue to ask questions, continue to, be questioning about everything going on right now, because we can't trust anything that's being said or anything coming out of this government. They have lied. They continue to lie. They are following the orders of a man. And you can't help but think that why would they follow someone with this type of dirt on them? And then you have to wonder, are they complicit as well? Share this video. Get this video out to as many people as possible. We need to continue to keep talking about this. Stay vigilant. Stay engaged. Stay revolutionary.